The purpose of Raynet voice procedure is to make sure that we all understand each other. This course will cover why we need standard procedures, net operation, differences between amateur and user service, in other words, Raynet procedure, phonetics, precedence of messages, pro words and example QSOs. There are pre-recorded demonstrations of good and bad nets, some notes on what not to do. We need standard voice procedure because at large events, people from different groups must work together. Everybody needs to speak the same language. It's too late to learn during an actual incident, so we have training and exercises instead. It's much easier if we all know what to expect. We can pass traffic much more quickly if we follow standard formats about how we identify ourselves. We need to pass the most urgent traffic first. We need to break messages up into small pieces so people have a chance to write them down and check before writing down the next piece. And the work of the net control station is much easier if callers state who they are and how important the message is, if they pass data in the expected format, use standard phonetics and abbreviations, and if messages are kept short so that more urgent traffic can break in. Nearly all Raynet operation takes place as a controlled net. In a controlled net, one station acts as control and invites the others to speak. Traffic is managed by the control station, which should be sited where it can hear everyone. It should invite stations to transmit when they call in the best order for the traffic. Tell other stations when the frequency is clear so they can call in with new traffic. Control maintains the event log and keeps track of stations entering and leaving the net. Control passes messages between stations if they can't hear each other, or direct them to pass traffic on a separate frequency if they have a lot of point-to-point traffic. From time to time, Control will identify the net and ask for a clear frequency from other stations. Other stations in the net should only transmit when invited to do so by Control or to alert Control to traffic. Stations should go to a separate frequency if directed by Control in order to pass direct traffic efficiently without completely locking out other traffic from the net. Looking harder at what the control station has to do, the control station keeps the net log and makes periodic identification broadcasts with real call signs. In today's world, because of COVID, log keeping and controlling the net often have to be done by the same person. So you need to allow time for the control station to keep up with the log as well as keeping up with traffic. The control station makes operational announcements to all stations, such as the competitors who have withdrawn from an event. The control keeps track of stations entering and leaving the net and decides which of several stations calling in at the same time should be invited to transmit. Control should invite the stations with the highest priority first. Within the same priority, Control should take traffic from remote stations in turns or according to operational need. For example, points earlier in the course probably need to clear their traffic before points further round. Otherwise, information will be out of date before it's logged. And Control acknowledges other stations calling in and instructs them to wait unless relevant to the information currently being exchanged. Control will ask other stations to stand by if a higher priority call is received. Control will keep a list of stations that have called in but have not yet been invited to transmit. If there is a lot of point-to-point traffic between two stations, Control will direct them onto a separate working channel to give other stations a chance, and will inform other stations if it will be off-air and when it comes back on air, so that they are aware that they need to keep traffic until Control comes back. Control should perform periodic checks on stations that have not been heard for a while. Obviously, if their batteries have gone flat, we need to send someone with more batteries. And Control will close down the net at the end of the event after all stations and user services are aware that Raynet services will no longer be available. And ordinary operators in the field should wait until instructed to close down by Control so that Control knows what's going on and user services can still pass traffic if they need to. Amateur voice procedure has a number of influences. A lot of early practice came from Morse code, which most amateurs used before World War II. Things like Q codes. We still use old phonetic alphabets extensively, like country names. And we do things that were once required by the license, but really aren't anymore, like using call signs quite as frequently as we do on HF. Raynet procedures are much more aligned to our user services. Our user services generally took up voice radio in the 1950s and were heavily influenced by people's experience in military and aviation radio a few years earlier. Raynet uses tactical call signs where possible. Our procedures are designed to pass information efficiently. They are critically dependent on the use of standard abbreviations, phonetics, and procedural words, which are often called pro words. We use the NATO phonetic alphabet only, and we use controlled nets to ensure that traffic is passed efficiently. In normal amateur contacts, we exchange call signs at the beginning and end of each over. In Raynet activities, we use tactical call signs with occasional use of actual call signs to satisfy the license. So we might say, Control, this is G0 Odessa Mobile Checkpoint 1 now on station, once at the start of the day. And thereafter, we just say, Control, Checkpoint 1 routine. And in some cases, with abbreviated procedure, we might even omit our own location and just say who we're calling if we're Control. Tactical call signs will be listed in the operations order for planned event or advised by Control on arrival at a real incident. Tactical call signs do not change if there is a change of operator. They represent a place or a checkpoint or a function. So something like roving marshal or checkpoint 1 or police control might be used. And if somebody changes shifts, the tactical call sign doesn't change, which makes the net much easier to manage for the control station. This slide shows the NATO alphabet and recommended number pronunciation. These are designed to ensure that each letter and number sounds as different as possible, even if spoken by people for whom English is not a first language. As an exercise, you should try to convert your hometown and area code, your telephone area code, to native phonetics and say them aloud. So I might say, for Ipswich and 01449, India Papa Sierra Whiskey India Charlie Hotel, 01449er. When working with user services, we often have to send data that has to be spelled out. These are things like names of people and places, which may not sound anything like their actual spelling. So we say Hosley, not Hollesley. We say Mulgai, not Milngavie, if you come from near Glasgow. If you have multiple spellings that sound the same, like Ian and Ian, or John and John, as in India Alpha India November versus India Alpha November, or Juliet Oscar Hotel November versus Juliet Oscar November, words like these have to be spelled out to ensure that they are transmitted accurately and written down the same at the receiving station. We use only the native phonetic alphabet to avoid confusion, and we use the pro word I spell to indicate that a spelling is coming so that the person writing it down can get ready. So we might say, Control from Roving Marshal, current location, Hosley, I spell, Hotel, Oscar, Lima, Lima, Echo, Sierra, Lima, Echo, Yankee. Numbers are hard to send accurately by voice. We use specific pronunciations to make it easier in case of difficult radio conditions or strong accent. It's better to send digits one at a time with a break or a long pause between numbers. So we might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in good conditions, or 1, 2, 3, break, 4, 5, 6, break, 7, 8, 9, break in bad conditions. So the control station knows where one number ends and the next one begins. If conditions are difficult, multi-digit numbers are best sent twice in different forms for clarity. So we might say three numbers, 1, 2, and 3, 3. I say again 1, 2, 33, since 3, 3 is ambiguous between two 3's and the number 33. Structured data should always be sent in the same order as directed in the operations order or requested by control. For many of our exercise events where we track horses and people round courses, reports should be sent as a count of numbers to come, then up to 5 numbers followed by a timestamp. For example, 5 numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 44 at 09:35. I say again, 2, 4, 6, 8, 4, 4 at 09:35. Use of tactical call signs means that the location should already be known to control. Wait for control to confirm before sending the next block. Especially if they don't have a second operator to keep the log at the control station, they need time to write it all down before accepting any more data. User service and therefore Raynet messages have a defined order of precedence. Higher precedent messages should be sent first. Stations with lower precedence traffic should stand by until higher precedence traffic has cleared. 3 precedence levels are defined for user traffic by National Raynet. Immediate is the highest priority, implying risk to life. You will sometimes hear emergency in HF operations, which is in the IARU and North American manuals. Some user services may still use no duff or flash for similar messages. Strictly speaking, flash is an even higher armed forces priority. The second class of Raynet message is priority for messages requiring urgent attention, such as ambulance calls, and routine for everything else. You should always state the priority of your traffic when calling control, and state it twice if it is not routine. So, control, checkpoint 1, immediate, immediate. Control will ask all other stations to stand by until higher priority traffic has cleared. A station with information relevant to a higher priority conversation should break in with relevant. Relevant is not a message priority, it is a pro word indicating that a station can contribute to the traffic currently being exchanged and prevent a misunderstanding or error from taking place. Pro words or procedural words are the punctuation of a Raynet voice contact. They avoid misunderstandings and ensure traffic is passed efficiently. There is a full list in the National Raynet Manual at section 3.1.3.2. There are some common amateur pro words, I guess you could call them, that should not be used in Raynet. Roger is used, but only in a very specific context, as meaning I have received and understood your message, and never for anything else. QSL is not recommended as an alternative. We do not normally use go ahead. Out is only used by the control station to indicate that the channel is clear for new traffic in Raynet procedure. Some user services, all stations use it to indicate that they do not intend to transmit again. Over and out is not to be used. Over should be used rather than a second exchange of call signs at the end of a transmission. Stations should normally only call control on arrival, when departing, or if they have traffic. On arrival at a point or to advise a change of operator, wait for a clear frequency. Remember that only control can hear everyone else, so they have to say the frequency is clear, and then send your real call sign and your tactical call sign. For example, control G0ZS checkpoint 1. If you have traffic, wait for a clear frequency indicated by control out, and then send control, your tactical call sign, and the precedence. For example, control checkpoint 1 routine. Higher precedence, i.e. priority or immediate, should be repeated, like control checkpoint 1 immediate, immediate. At the end of operation, when you believe your station is no longer needed, request control for permission to close down. Control checkpoint 1 request to close down. Wait for an instruction from control to actually close down. This will also be sent unprompted by control at the end of an event or incident when everyone can go home. When control has said you can close down, send control, your real call sign, your tactical call sign, and closing down. So control G0ZS checkpoint 1 closing down. Stations may call control for a radio check. This should be done at the first opportunity after changing equipment. So if you have a new battery, a different antenna, or switching from the car radio to a handheld because you need to go and see someone, wait for a clear frequency indicated by control out. Control may also request stations to check direct before taking traffic. To ask for a radio check, send control, your tactical call sign, and the pro word radio check. So, for example, control checkpoint 1 radio check. Control will respond using a military-style signal report rather than our 59s and 57s. The normal values from the Raynet manual are good, readable with difficulty, unworkable, or nothing heard. It is sometimes necessary to interrupt traffic in progress, either to pass a higher priority message or to provide relevant information. To allow other stations to do so, leave a short break before replying to control. In the case of having a higher priority message, send something like checkpoint 1 immediate, immediate, and wait to be called by control. In case of having relevant information, you interrupt with checkpoint 1 relevant and wait to be called by control. Note that break is used to separate parts of one transmission and should not be used to break in to a conversation. We confirm receipt of transmissions by saying affirm or yes, yes as a reply rather than QSL. Approved is used by control to grant permission for a proposed action. Negative means no, incorrect, or permission not granted, depending on context. We can acknowledge information with Roger, which means I have received and understood your message, and Wilco, which means I will comply with your request or instruction. We have standard pro words for questions and instructions. Acknowledge is used to ask a station whether they have received and understood a message. The station should respond with affirm or yes, yes if they did understand and receive, or negative if they did not. Our receiving station may ask for confirmation by saying confirm, followed by the message they think they received. The sender should answer correct or mistake. You can also ask a station to read back the message that they have just received, in which case the recipient reads back the message exactly as heard. The sender should then answer correct or mistake, and if necessary, send it again. We use Roger so far as a question after sending a block of data or a line of a formal message. The receiving station should then return so far or negative, depending on whether they heard it or did not. We request information or permission with the pro words report if the receiver is required to pass requested information, so report your location. We use request to ask a question or request permission, like request permission to stand down. And we use send or pass your message when we are ready for another station to send us information. Typically, this is used by control. Sooner or later, we will need to correct things. The pro words for corrections are cancel, which completely annuls the previously transmitted instruction, correction, which is sent after an error in one's own traffic and followed by the correct version. So I might say number 567, correction 657. Disregard means to disregard the previous transmission completely as if it hadn't been sent. And mistake is sent to another station to say that there is an error in their transmission. We may need to request that information is repeated in bad conditions or because of not writing it down quickly enough. The pro word for that is say again, which means please retransmit your previous message. You can qualify that with all after or all before, which specifies the part of the message to say again, the first or second half, before or after the word that you've heard properly. Or if it's only one word that you've lost, you can say the word after or word before what you need retransmitting. There are pro words for instructions from control and replies from outstations. Wait means wait until called. Wait 1 means wait for a short time, nominally 1 minute. Typically this is used when control needs to delay other stations calling in until things have been written down. Out in Raynet procedure is used only by control and means that the channel is clear for further traffic. Send or pass your message are used to ask a station to send information. Standby means wait until I call you. Over means my transmission has ended and I expect a response. Close down is an instruction from control to cease operating. Outstations should reply over at the end of a transmission when they expect a response. Break is used to say my transmission has ended and I will send more before handing over. So that is typically used when you need to stop to turn the page or write something down. And message means I have a message to send. If you have several messages or several data items, it's useful to give the number of messages so control can work out whether to take it now or wait until something smaller has cleared. When sending data rather than messages, you can say number of data, which helps control prepare. So you might say control checkpoint 1, 5 data. This slide shows a simple exchange of one block of data between an outstation and control. Note that the outstation says how much data is coming and then gives the data twice using slightly different formats separated by I say again. They also ask the control station to confirm receipt, so control reads back the data and the outstation then completes the over. There are a few other pro words encountered in common use. We say decimal where decimal points need to be transmitted, like change frequency to 145 decimal 225. We use stop to represent full stops in formal messages, like the cat sat on the mat, stop. The cat was fat. Stop. The letter X is sometimes used instead of the word stop in data modes or Morse code. We use the pro word sitrep for a situation report. So, control, checkpoint 1, sitrep please. Checkpoint 1, sitrep, marshals and first aid present, no water yet. Over. It is sometimes more efficient for stations to pass information directly if they can hear each other, either on the main frequency if it is short, or on a separate working frequency if it is a lot of data and it is not desirable to take up the main frequency for an extended period. Stations should always request direct communication via control. Direct communication is the correct term to use. Talk through in national guidance is specific to the use of crossband repeaters. I'll pause for you to read the example. Note that the station needing to communicate directly requests this from control. Control asks the second station to communicate with the first. The second station then asks the first station to pass their message, and when they have finished, the last of the two stations to transmit hands back to control, which then says control out to advise all stations that the frequency is clear for other traffic. This side shows direct contact on a separate working frequency. In this case, checkpoint 1 calls control and requests direct. Control asks checkpoint 2 if they receive. Checkpoint 2 reports that they can, and checkpoint 2 is then instructed by control to take direct contact from checkpoint 1 on a specific frequency, which is acknowledged by checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2, after which they can continue on their own frequency, and control can release the channel for other stations to call in by saying control out. Formal messages are used for communication between user service representatives. A formal message is a bit like an email with standard headings, the message number, the precedence, the station of origin, which is your call sign and stays with the message even if it is forwarded, a word count of the message body, excluding the address and signature, a place of origin, which again stays with the message even if it is forwarded, and the date and time that it was filed for transmission. Some user services use a date-time group formed of the day in the month and the time. Others will use the full time and the date. So, for example, you might hear 002 priority M0JSA 18 Felixstowe 1731 November the 23rd. The header is followed by address and then a break or a Roger so far gap. This is followed by the message text sent with a break or a Roger so far after every 20 seconds or 5 numbers if sending data. At the end of the message, you finally send the user service signature like from J. Smith, Red Cross. Usually operators will get a message form with this structure and just need to write out the message header from the information in the form so they can easily say it when they press PTT. This is an example of a user service message form. This is actually Civil Defence Message Pad F652, also used by the Royal Signals from World War II, certainly well into the 1990s. And we had stacks of them in the old ComSen at Civic Drive in Ipswich. The signals or ComSen area at the top is where you can usefully write the radio header so that you don't have to think when you're transmitting it. The date time group encodes the day in the month and the time. The message instructions will say by radio if it's coming to Raynet. The from and to are exactly what they say. Security classification is likely to be unclassified for anything that we ever do. The info is the message text, which you need the words to get the check number that goes in the header, the 23 in this example. And the originator's number is a serial number from whoever is giving you the message forms. At the bottom, if you are receiving the message, you fill in the 4 boxes after R with the date, time, system, which could be VHF or UHF or packet, and your call sign. If you are sending it, as in this example, you fill in the 4 boxes after the letter D for dispatched, with the date and time of transmission, the system that you are operating, and your call sign. You will see the drafter's name and contact details on the form. This part is not sent over radio, it's for local records. In the traditional way of doing this, these were carbon paper forms, and typically you kept 1 copy for Raynet records and gave the other copy back to the sender with the time of dispatch by that point filled in. Nowadays, it's probably electronic, and we would probably use a photocopier or phone camera to keep the Raynet copy. This slide shows an example of formal message procedure from the National Raynet Manual. The star at the end of each line represents a break or Roger so far opportunity for control to write down what was said and for other stations to break in. It's important not to transmit for more than about 20 seconds without giving higher priority stations a chance to break in, and it's important not to start until you are sure control has written down what you've already sent. So Roger so far is much preferred to break between lines of the message. This is an example from another user service from the Army 1985 voice procedure. They use slightly different call signs. Control is always 0, and they always say out if they don't intend to transmit again as part of this exchange of messages, even as an out station. But hopefully this gives some view of how other people are likely to expect us to do it. Hello, Bravo 20, Romeo 10 and Yankee 30, this is 0. Priority formal message. Over. Bravo 20, send over. Romeo 10, send over. Yankee 30, send over. 0, Bravo 20, Romeo 10, info, Yankee 30. Priority routine, time 101210, Zulu, July 8-4. Break. Unclass subject indicator code, Whiskey Charlie Zulu. Nominations for equipment familiarization course required by 12 July. Break. Over. Roger out. Roger out. Roger out. In small nets with experienced operators, we use abbreviated procedure to speed up the transfer of information. This requires experienced operators and good reception between all stations. We eliminate most of the from call signs and use versions of pro words, and control stations may give several instructions or messages in one transmission to save time. So for example, checkpoint 1 from control message over becomes checkpoint 1. Point 3 from control pass your message over becomes point 3 send. Alpha control from Alpha 5 Roger over becomes Roger Alpha 5, and control might say Alpha 5 wait, Alpha 2 send, instead of separately saying Alpha 5 from control wait, Alpha 2 from control send your message over. A very important note from the National Raynet Manual is that the abbreviated procedure should be used only by experienced operators under virtually perfect communication conditions. If conditions are difficult, either due to weak signals or local acoustical noise, or if some operators are not fully experienced, the net controller should adopt the full formal procedure.
Control M0 JSA, checkpoint 1.
Checkpoint 1, control.
Control, checkpoint 1 on station. Over.
Roger, out.
Control, checkpoint 1, routine.
Checkpoint 1 from control, pass your message.
Control, checkpoint 1, request organisers to send more water. Over.
Roger, out.
Control, checkpoint 1, routine.
Checkpoint 1, control, pass your message.
Control, checkpoint 1, 2 blocks of data, break. 11, 23, 32, 45, 100. Roger so far?
So far, over.
57, 58, 70, 105, 9. Roger so far?
Send again, all after 70. Over.
105, 9. I say again, 105, 9. Roger so far?
So far, over.
Time to 11:30. Over.
Confirm 11:30. Over.
Correct. Over.
Control out.
Control. Checkpoint 1. Routine.
Checkpoint 1, control. Pass your message. Over.
Checkpoint 2. Immediate.
Checkpoint 2, pass your message. Other stations, wait. Over.
Control. Checkpoint 2. Request paramedic here ASAP. Acknowledge.
Checkpoint 2, control. Yes, yes, over.
Checkpoint 1. Relevant.
Checkpoint 1, send. Over.
Paramedic is here and has been informed. Over.
Control, checkpoint 1. Request paramedic go to the checkpoint 2. Ask for ETA. Over.
ETA, 5 minutes. Over.
Control, checkpoint 1. Roger, out.
Control, checkpoint 1. Priority. Priority.
Checkpoint 1, control. Pass your message. Other stations, wait. Over.
Control, checkpoint 1. Message begins. Number 2. Priority is routine. M0 JSA. 18. Felixstowe Ferry. 11:30. November 23. Roger so far?
So far, over.
2. Environment Agency Control. Roger so far?
So far, over.
Water level now 0.2 meters above normal. Roger so far?
So far, over.
Request 2 tons of additional sandbags before 1300. Roger so far?
So far, over.
From Fred Smith, Environment Agency Site Engineer. Break. Message ends from checkpoint 1. Over.
Checkpoint 1 from control. Roger, out.
Oh, checkpoint 1. Did you check?
Checkpoint 1 control. Good readable. Over.
Control. Checkpoint 1. Also good readable. Over.
Control out. Checkpoint 2 control. Welfare check.
Control. Checkpoint 2. All okay. Please send a new battery for 1700. Over.
Control, roger, out. There are a few absolute don'ts. Don't send more than 5 data items or 1 sentence without a break. The person at the other end almost certainly can't write as fast as you can talk. Therefore, the receiver controls the pace to ensure that nothing is missed. Don't use Roger outside its very narrow, limited intended meaning. Don't ever use over and out. Out in Raynet procedure is reserved for control, and this is an invitation for waiting stations to call with traffic. Don't transmit more than a call sign and traffic precedence when calling in. Don't leave the net without informing control. Control must authorize any stand down and organize a replacement if it is not yet time for that tactical call sign to go off air.
Checkpoint 2. G7SCR Raynet Control. This is 20ISJ Mobile Checkpoint 2.
20ISJ Mobile, this is G7SCR. Many thanks for calling in. I trust you had a good journey to your point. G7SCR, 20ISJ Mobile.
G7SCR 20ISJ Mobile. Well, the traffic lights were a bit long, and then I had a learner. We all know the learners, and then decided he was doing 20, 25. 30, then it went up to 50, and I nearly had a heart attack, and well, yeah, at least I finally got here and didn't get too lost. I mean, those what three words can be a bit confusing with no satellite. This is G7SCR, this 20ISJ Mobile, clear?
G7SCR Raynet Control, back to standby.
G7SCR, M0JSA Mobile.
M0JSA Mobile, G7SCR, go ahead.
G7SCR, M0JSA Mobile. Please send more water. G7SCR, M0JSA Mobile.
M0JSA Mobile, G7SCR. Which checkpoint is that? M0JSA Mobile, G7SCR.
G7SCR, M0JSA Mobile. Checkpoint 1, QSL. From M0JSA Mobile.
Okay, QSL Control, back to standby.
Control checkpoint 2.
Checkpoint 2 Control, go ahead.
11, 23, 32, 45, 100 at 11:30. 57, 58, 71, 105 at 11:50.
Send again, all after 11:30 with breaks. Over.
57, 58, 71, 105, 9 at 11:50. QSL. And 3 at 11:55, 90, 102, 34. QSL.
Confirm last group was 34.
SL.
Control out. It's worth reviewing what was wrong with that recorded second net. There was excessive use of call signs. There were long overs blocking stations with event traffic from calling in. Data was sent in different orders on different overs, and only one way can possibly match the log sheet in control, and it takes them much longer if they have to write columns out of order. And non-use of tactical call signs requires other stations to ask the role or location of someone sending a message. So in summary, standard voice procedure is essential for efficiency and to avoid errors. We use directed nets managed by a control station. Apart from initial calls, speak only when invited to do so by the control station. Messages have precedence, immediate priority or routine. The highest priority traffic should be cleared before sending lower priorities. We use the NATO phonetic alphabet exclusively to avoid spelling issues. We use standard procedures and pro words to communicate efficiently. We pass data and messages in standard formats to fit in with user service message forms and so that the recipient knows what to expect and can easily spot errors. This slide shows the source material for this course, which is the Raynet UK manual downloadable from the members area of the national website, the IARU emergency operating procedure, which is freely downloadable, and British Army voice procedure. I haven't found a good source online, but they turn up as pamphlets relatively cheaply on eBay. I saw one go for £3.20 very recently. And the best version is Army Code 70816 from 1985, which is, I think, the most recent that has escaped into the public domain. This training is based on the National Raynet Manual, which all members can download from the national website. I'd like to thank Alan M0JSA for proofreading the early drafts of these slides and the significant improvements that he suggested. I'd like to thank Alan M0JSA and Sarah 2E0ISJ for helping to record the demo nets, and Sarah in particular for editing and greatly improving the audio recordings of the demo nets. Thank you.